Time for a review on my $200 off-road GPS. Hey everyone, I'm Duncan from Overland Journals. Welcome to another weekly video. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because my channel is all about sharing my experiences in overlanding with the rest of the community, and I bring a video out every week. A year ago, I did a video on an off-road GPS I got myself for under 200 Australian dollars. That consisted of a 7-inch Lenovo Android tablet and then Hema Maps. If you missed that one, go check it out, link above and in the description below. So in today's video, I want to do a 1-year review on how the device has stood up to off-road use or off-road abuse, whether you can get it today for the same price, and I'll also do an on-screen demo of how I've been using the Hema Maps, and then also a few tips and things to look out for, to consider if you're going for one of these setups. So let's start with the device itself. Now, this stays permanently in my 4B, so this tablet is purely for the use when I travel off-road or go overlanding. I don't bring it into the house, so it stays permanently. So it goes through all the temperature changes during our summers and our winters, so it's done a full year of that. And when I go overlanding, it goes through all the bumps and corrugations, the shakes and rattles and all that kind of stuff. And I have dropped it a few times. There was a couple of occasions while I was on an off-road trip. The suction cup that holds the mounting, which holds this back, the tablet, came loose, fell onto the dash and then onto the floor. So there's been a few occasions where it's fallen off. Sometimes while it's parked, due to temperature changes, the suction cup of the holder comes off, this thing falls down. So it's gone through a bit of falls as well. Nothing major, but it did go through that as well, and a lot of abuse in terms of dust. So you know how it is when you go off-road, especially in our Australian conditions, it's dust galore, and this gets covered in dust. And then on top of that, if I want to get to a point on the map or see something, I will always put my finger on it and then move it around, and obviously don't bother cleaning the dust out because I'm on the go. I want to do it real quick, so that tendencies to have it scratched because of the fine dust is also pretty high. Nevertheless, the device has stood up pretty well. Now, if the camera will pick it up, you will see there's hardly any scratches on the screen, even though, as I said, it's been through a bit of rough use. So it's pretty good on the outside. The screen is pretty good. It's still, the touch feel works very well. I can zoom in and out. It works very smoothly. And even on the, it's taken a lot more beating back here, as you can see from the marks and so on. I did put in a bit of a two-way Velcro tape to try and hold it a little bit more firm onto the bracket. That was just, you don't have to do it. It's something I did just for added safety, you could say. So on the back, it's taken a bit of abuse, you can see that, but surprisingly, the screen is pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with the device, how it stood up. By the way, at the end of this video, if you found it useful, please do give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions relating to this video or anything else that I do on this channel, please do ask. I'm happy to answer any question either through the comment section or do another video. Okay, now to the maps, the Hema Maps in my case. Now, I must mention that my primary navigation aid is not the GPS, it's printed maps. It's not that I'm old-fashioned and I don't want to get in, embrace technology. That's not it, because the whole idea for me with maps is that it helps me to keep in touch and develop my map reading skills. And also, having printed maps, I find it's a whole heap of fun, because while you're on a trip, you get the printed map out, spread it over the hood, get a couple of beers, get your friends around, and then you sort of discuss the route. So to me, that's really good fun, rather than having a little tablet and everybody gathers around. To me, that's not so much fun. So it's not so much that I don't like technology, it's just the way I like to do it. And as I said, I like to keep developing that skill set that I've developed over the years of reading maps. Now, I'm no expert, but I do have a fair bit of knowledge on map reading and then play around with compasses and stuff like that. Now, in this device, I run Hema Maps, and what I do is Hema Maps. I've also got an online Hema cloud account, which you can get to once you've purchased the maps from the App Store. You go onto Hema Cloud, create an account for yourself. It's free. And then the really cool part is, before going on a trip, during the trip planning stage, what I do is I go on the Hema Cloud, and I sort of mark out the route that I intend to take. And also on the bigger screen on the PC, it gives me, a better view of some of the side tracks I can take and so on. So I do all that. And in another video, I talked about geocaching. If you missed that one, go check it out. The link above and in the description below. That's a heap of fun. It's a little bit like a treasure hunt, but more in today's level. So using a GPS. So during that trip planning stage, if I know of any geocache points along the way, I then mark that on the map as well. So all this I do on the Hema Cloud. Once I've done that, I download that map into my device, or the maps in my device. So the route is pretty much marked out. That doesn't necessarily mean I stick to that route. I may deviate from it, but that's okay. But I have generally got that route in mind. And that's pretty much what I do at the trip planning stage. Then while on the go, while on my overland trips, especially when I get off-road, what I then do is I go to my maps, and then I get the map, I can get it to record my route. Now again, when I do the screen demo, you'll see what I mean by that. And then I might drop waypoints if I find an interesting place along the way, which I didn't know about at the trip planning stage. Then I will mark it on the map. I'll put waypoints, markers, and so on. You can even put pictures, which I'll show you. And if I deviate from the route for some reason, because sometimes you stop at a local pub in the outback, have a chat with the locals, and all of a sudden you find that they'll give you the insight or directions to a place which is not necessarily on the map. And I've had that many times happening to me, and that's really cool fun. And you tend to discover places which is generally not known by everybody else. So then you go, and then when I do that, I mark that on the map as well. And then when I come back home, what I do is all that I get uploaded back into my cloud account, and I've got it there. And then thereafter I can share it with friends, or if I do the same route again or go back to the same area again, I got that in place. So that's pretty cool, and it's pretty comprehensive, and it adds a whole heap of fun to the navigational part of the overlanding that I do. Now let's get into a screen demo of how I use the Hema Maps. Now it's not an in-depth video that I'll do separately, but this is just a brief overview of what the maps can be used, how the maps can be used. So let's dive into it. Okay, so we're in my device now, and Hema Maps. I'm gonna go into Hema Maps. That'll open up real quick. There we are. And while we are in here, I'll show you how, even though this is a cheap tablet, it works very well. I can move the screen around quite smoothly. I can zoom in and zoom out. It works pretty well. So considering the price paid, I'm pretty happy with it. Now going into the Hema Maps, you can see as you go in, you can zoom in quite a lot, quite considerable zooming you can do. And the map image remains pretty clear. Now you got the icons along the way, as you can see. So for instance, Coward Springs, one of my favorite camping spots here in South Australia, in the South Australian outback. And if I tap on it, it'll give me a description of what that particular place is. Or moving a bit down towards the east, there you get that little icon of a tree. That's probably a rest point. There you go. So that's a ruin along the way where you can stop and park off, and sometimes you can camp there as well. And then there's a lookout point just below that. So it's pretty cool. So you get all the little points along the way, which is already comes along with Hema Maps. Now on the top of up to the right of the screen, you got these icons that you can play with. So the very first icon, starting from the right, working our way to the left, you can see, as you can see, there you go. So you got the various different map overlays you can have. So there's the Kimberleys, the Cape York, Great Desert Tracks, High Country, Fraser Island, and so on. So you can download more maps, but when you get the Hema Explorer for $99, you get a considerable amount of maps that come along. So my active layer at the moment is the Hema Explorer, as you can see from the top. So that's the first icon. So the second one is waypoint. So if you're on your route and you want, at a particular point, you want to create a waypoint, or perhaps you're creating a route before you set off, you can put these waypoints down. So you can create a waypoint. You can create a waypoint at a particular place you are at. You can measure the distance between various points, gives you an approximate distance. And also the cool thing is, if you're at a point where you're dropping in a waypoint, you can take a picture and you can then include that picture to that waypoint. So that's really cool. So then once you come back and you upload it back to your cloud, all that information is there in the cloud for use next time, or to share with friends who may want to do the same route. So that's a really cool feature. Then coming back to it, the third icon from the right, that is just to center the map. I'm not going to do that right now because it's going to take me out of where I am right now. And then the next icon thereafter is where you get all the legends. So for instance, points of interest. If I go into points of interest, it'll give me all the different icons or the legend on the map as you go along. So it'll tell you what each one stands for. So bush camp, camping, caravan park, lookout points, wineries, and it's very, very comprehensive. And they're all there on the maps when you download from Hema. And then if you want to search, that's the search function is available. You want to type something in there, and once you type, you can. So for example, let's say you want to look for Kuba PD. There you go, Kuba PD mine, and you tap in, and then the map will take you to Kuba PD mine. There you go. So it's really cool. Now there's something else I really like. So let's get out of search function. There you go. Now something really cool I like on the maps here is at the bottom left corner, you will see a record button. Okay, so when you're on the go and you're traveling, you can hit the record button and it'll start recording the route that you're taking, and it'll keep vital information like the distance, the moving time, total time elapsed since you hit the record button, altitude, and a whole heap of information. There you go. So there's the track recorder. You can get all that information. Of course, now I'm not moving, so there's hardly any data being collected. But that's a cool piece of information, I feel. And then once you finish the route, you can hit stop, you can pause recording, or you can say finish the track. And then you can go in and give it a title, a name, or whatever that you want. And then you can put any notes as well. So it's pretty cool. And then again, you come back and you upload that information to your cloud. Everything is available for you to use next time or to share. And now when you go to the top left of the screen, you get the pull down menu. And in that menu, you get a whole heap of other things. So you can go into the map, or you can see how your GPS status is. Now, for instance, here it's picking up 6 satellites and it tells me that there's 13 in view. So that gives me that, of course, the more satellites it picks up, the better the accuracy. The trip itself, the timeline, various folders I may have created for myself, various tracks I may have saved, the various waypoints, and so on and so forth, and also the settings. There are a few tips I have for you when you're setting up a tablet as your off-road GPS unit. But before that, let's get into it costs and see whether you can get the same setup done for the same price as I did a year ago. So a year ago when I got this tablet, it was on special, which I got from one of the local electronics distributors or retailers, and it was on special. So I got it for under 100 Australian dollars, put in the Hema Maps, which was $99 Australian. And so I came in under $200 for the unit plus the GPS, the off-road maps. Can it be done today? Yes, you can. Now the device I got, this particular one here, is a 7-inch Lenovo tablet. It doesn't have to be Lenovo, you can do your own research. There are other brands out there as well on the same price point. Today you can get a 10-inch, so obviously fairly bigger than the one I have. You can get a 10-inch, and as the time of doing this video, I've seen it at some of the Australian retailers for around $120 to $130. If you want to go with the 7-inch, I find the 7-inch quite adequate. However, 10-inch would be, obviously a little bit that much better. You can still get the 7-inch for the $100 mark, and Hema Maps are still $99.99. So yes, it can be done. You pay a little bit over $200 if you're going in for the 10-inch, but then again you're getting 3 inches of screen more than my setup. So now for some tips when you're setting this up. Now in my first video when I did a year ago, something I didn't mention, and it was a question that got asked many times by many of the viewers, was how do I have this fixed onto the dashboard or to the windscreen? Well, there's the number of windscreen mounts that you can buy from eBay and Amazon. I have tried a few of those, didn't quite particularly like them, because when you're out, it works perfectly when you're on the blacktop or smoother roads, but the moment you get off-road and you start hitting those corrugations, they just don't stand up to it. Because this adds a little bit of weight, and then the weight extenuates the shake, and then eventually the rubber mount comes off. So what I would recommend is get yourself a RAM mount. RAM mounts can be a bit pricey, but in my experience, they're the best you can find. I'm not sponsored by RAM, but it is a product that I've been using, and it stood the test. Now, that brings to another question. So you might say, okay, GPS and the map setup is $200 or a little bit over $200. Then you add a RAM mount, which is a fairly pricey, you could say. And then now it brings us closer to the price of a standalone unit. It's a fair question. But the thing is this, the way I look at it, it's the value that I get out of this unit as compared to a standalone unit. I'm not saying don't buy a standalone unit. As I said, my primary form of navigating is still printed maps. So this is secondary for me. So with that in mind, and the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, I can put a whole lot of other apps into this device, gives me far more value, in my opinion. So as I said, I got my maps in here, I've got my music in here, which is more specific for my overlanding, so which is necessarily not what I have in my phone. I've got it in here. It's constantly charging, so I don't have to use the phone, so that I can continue to play my music as much as I want. And sometimes I even put videos in here, which I may want to watch when I'm just relaxing at the campsite. And then there's a whole lot of other apps I've put in here, which are for my personal use. So to me, when I look in that context, it still works out quite cheap as compared to a dedicated unit. Another thing to be aware of is heat. Now, it generally doesn't heat up on the go. However, with direct sunlight coming through the windscreen and hitting the back of this unit, I found in the early days it was heating up quite a bit. Then the unit gives me a warning saying it's heating up. Then I've got to take the unit out, keep it aside so that it cools off. Now, of course, once you take it off and you keep it on the seat or somewhere else within the vehicle, it still continues to work. So it doesn't necessarily need to have that windscreen to hook up to the satellites. It works pretty well, so that's okay. However, one way to overcome the problem of sun heating up the unit, what I've been doing is I throw a hand towel over it at that time, and that keeps it pretty cool. So that's something to keep in mind. Glare is something else you need to be aware of. It does happen. It happens with the dedicated units as well. So how I've overcome the glare is through two ways. One is when I mount it onto the cradle, I kind of tilt it down a little bit so it's away from any reflections or light that's coming through onto it. And then I also went on eBay and got myself a little hood. They're very cheap. I think I bought mine for about $5. The postage cost more than the hood. Or if you're the creative type, you could actually make a little hood that sticks out and you can clip onto this. And that does the trick. So glare has never been much of a problem for me, the way I've done it and set it up. So I hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. My channel is all about sharing my overlanding experiences with the rest of the community. Hit that notification bell because I bring out a video every week. And if you've got questions relating to this video or anything overlanding related which you think I might be good in answering, please leave them in the comments below too. And I'll see you next week in another video. Thanks for watching.